So look at Anthony Ryder from South Lyon, Michigan, recently selected as the Lions 2020 Fan of the Year. He has a passion about sports broadcasting.
With the 112th selection in the 2021 NFL Draft, the Detroit Lions select Amon-Ra St. Brown, wide receiver, USC. One pride, baby! Yeah! What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another Detroit Lions video. The Detroit Lions travel to Baltimore in Week 7 to take on the 4-2 Baltimore Ravens. Both teams sitting atop the north part of their conferences. The Detroit Lions sit 5-1 atop the NFC North, and the Baltimore Ravens sit at 4-2 on top of the AFC North. Both teams are coming off big wins this past weekend as the Detroit Lions beat the 3-2 Tampa Bay Buccaneers on the road, and the Baltimore Ravens defeated the Tennessee Titans that are currently 2-4, technically on the road all the way into another country as they played in London a week ago. This game officially opens as a 2.5-point favorite for the Baltimore Ravens. However, that skew is likely due to the Baltimore Ravens being a home team, meaning that Vegas and a lot of betting places view this game as a very, very close matchup and see this game potentially going either way. The spread is very low, and I think that this game is going to be incredibly close for many reasons. So let's get into talking about this game, starting off with the Detroit Lions. The Detroit Lions are an offensive powerhouse, and they've been one of the top teams in the NFL since kicking off the NFL season in Week 1. They currently rank as the 4th scoring offense in the NFL, averaging 28 points per game. They rank as the 8th best rushing attack in the NFL and the 4th best passing attack. They are easily a top 5. They are easily a top 10, if not a top 5 offense in the NFL. They are a great scoring offense. They move the ball really, really well, both on the ground and through the air. And they have been one of the league's most lethal offenses the entire year, even lacking the explosive plays, even lacking the 40, 50-yard mega plays. The Lions have been one of the most efficient offenses. They've moved the ball really well. They've scored really well. And adding Jameson Williams and Jahmyr Gibbs back into things only is going to make this offense even more dangerous and explosive than it has already been. On the defensive side of the ball, they are not great, but they are certainly very good. Ranking as the 18th best passing defense in the NFL, but ranking as the very best rushing defense in the NFL. They are allowing just 67.8 rushing yards per game, ranking them number 1 overall in the entirety of the NFL. And a large part of that goes into them being a top 10 scoring defense in the NFL, officially ranking as the 10th best scoring defense in the league through 6 weeks of NFL play. So they are a very good football team. They are an elite offense. They are certainly an above average, arguably a top 10 defense in the NFL in a lot of different metrics, but the Baltimore Ravens are not going to be pushovers. They sit at 4-2 for a reason. That reason is primarily their defense, ranking as the 2nd best pass defense in the NFL, the 10th best rushing defense in the NFL, and the 4th best scoring defense in the NFL. They have the elite defense to win them football games, and that elite defense has done so for the first 6 games of the NFL season. Now, on offense, they are a little bit below what you might expect for a 4-2 football team, but they are certainly not bad. Ranking as the 15th scoring offense in the NFL, the 5th best rushing attack in the NFL, and the 24th best passing attack in the NFL. They do have some drop concerns with their wide receivers, but I do think they are still a very good offense. Watching back the Tennessee game a week ago, Lamar Jackson got the ball out very quick. He extended plays with his legs. He was very clearly a danger through the ground and through the air. And even though that passing attack isn't quite perfect, Lamar Jackson's been playing a really good brand of football all year long. I think he's been putting the ball in places for his wide receivers to make plays. He's just waiting on his wide receivers to start making some of those plays and putting them in better positions to put up even more points on opposing defenses. Taking a look at the matchups of this week. The Detroit Lions, I think, match up fairly well versus the Baltimore Ravens, although, like I said, it is going to be a very close matchup this week. The offensive line is the easiest and most clear victor in this terms, right? The Detroit Lions offensive line is a top 2 unit in the NFL. Some would argue it is the very best unit in the NFL at that position, while the Baltimore Ravens defensive line is just okay. I thought they had some good moments versus Tennessee and some bad moments versus Tennessee. I thought early in the game they kind of got pushed around a little bit in the rushing defense, as well as not really getting a whole lot of pressure on Ryan Tannehill as a passer. They did end up getting a little bit more at the end versus Malik Willis, but a lot of that had to do with them blitzing quite a bit and sending extra rushers that Malik Willis wasn't quite ready to deal with. I think the offensive line will be able to deal with Baltimore's defensive line, especially if they're only rushing 4, as Baltimore's best pass rusher right now is Jadeveon Clowney, who really doesn't compare to some of the other pass rushers the Lions have had to face over the last couple of weeks. Wide receivers, I went back and forth with this one versus the Baltimore defensive backs, but I ultimately decided to give it to the Detroit Lions wide receivers because, yes, while Marlon Humphrey is very good, while Marlon Humphrey is very, very good and their safety duo is top of the NFL, I do think the depth has to be considered, right? If Marlon Humphrey is taking away Amon-Ra St. Brown, who's going to be covering Josh Reynolds? Who's going to be covering Khalif Raymond? Who's going to be running with Jameson Williams? Who's going to be taking on Marvin Jones as the reliable veteran underneath? Who is going to be taking on Antoine Green, who showed some big playability in the preseason, right? The Lions are 5-6 wide receivers deep, and they can all make plays on the Baltimore secondary. And with Baltimore secondary having quite a few injuries already this year, I do think the depth is going to be what gives the Detroit Lions the slight edge in this matchup, but I think it is one of the closest matchups we're going to take a look at today. Tight ends versus linebackers. Let's be honest, Roquan Smith is a top 2 linebacker in all of football. Sam Laporta is, I think, a top 5 tight end in football right now, but he did have some struggles versus Levante David last week. Won some battles and lost some battles, had 11 targets, I believe just 5 receptions for 40-ish yards. Not a bad day through the air for the young tight end, but also we saw that an elite linebacker can take him away through the air at times. And even though, like I said, I think Sam Laporta is going to win some battles like last week, Roquan Smith's pretty good. I think at the end of the day, when we're looking back, we're going to say, yeah, Laporta got his shots in, but realistically, Roquan Smith won that matchup throughout the entirety of the game overall. Same thing goes for the running backs. I think that Jahmyr Gibbs is going to get his plays. I think that Craig Reynolds is going to get his opportunities. But at the end of the day, when we go back and we look at this rushing attack after week 7 in Baltimore, we're going to take a look at it and say, yeah, probably not Jahmyr Gibbs' best day, right? Probably not Craig Reynolds' career day. They might have an impact. They're certainly going to be a factor in this game, but I don't think we're going to see career days out of the running backs. And at the end of the day, when we look back, I think we're going to say, hey, the Baltimore linebackers probably won that matchup. However, the Detroit Lions have the luxury of having an elite offensive line, a great wide receiving depth, as well as Jared Goff playing at an elite level. He is a top 10 quarterback easily in the NFL this year and is statistically a top 5 quarterback in almost every single passing statistic that you could ever find. The Lions also have really strong and really quality depth, which has been a reason they've been able to withstand all of the injuries they have sustained this year. They're getting healthier with Brian Branch returning, with Jahmyr Gibbs returning, with a lot of other key positions players, with a lot of other players returning like Josh Pascal, the former second-round pick who looked great in week 1, by the way. They have a little bit of depth coming in. They're adding a little bit more, and I think that that is going to be a huge part of the Detroit Lions' success on Sunday. Now, the Baltimore Ravens have quite a few matchups going their way as well, although the offensive line isn't quite one of them. As I said, the Baltimore offensive line has been good at times, and it has been bad at times. I thought that Tennessee had quite a few pressures on Lamar Jackson, and that the Detroit Lions defensive line is a little bit better than what Tennessee had to offer. I think Aiden Hutchinson's going to get quite a few pressures. I think if Josh Pascal returns, he can see quite a few pressures. Hopefully, Aleem McNeil can work on the interior, although the Baltimore center is a very good young player. I believe it is he went to Iowa. He was a first-round pick last year, although I can't remember his name at the time. Baltimore's offensive line is good, but with the Detroit Lions being top 5 in the NFL in pressures and welcoming back Josh Pascal this week, I think they're going to be able to pressure Lamar Jackson, maybe not quite get him to the ground like Baker Mayfield last week, but certainly they will be able to impact throwing lanes and potentially get a couple batted passes due to the pressure and presence of that defensive line. Wide receivers versus defensive backs. Again, I went back and forth with this. I do think Baltimore is a very underrated wide receiving core with guys like Zay Flowers, Odell Beckham Jr., Devin Duvernay, and Rashad Bateman, but at the end of the day, with the return of Brian Branch, or the likely return of Brian Branch, I should say, I think the Detroit Lions defensive backs are going to have it on covered, right? I think that Cam Sutton's having a very good season on the boundary. He has been a player that not many people are talking about, which is the best compliment you can have for a starting cornerback. Jerry Jacobs has 3 interceptions, I believe, tied for leading the NFL. Ifeatu Melifonwu has been Tracy Walker's been very good as the second safety. Kirby Joseph is officially back as the starting safety 1. Brian Branch is back in the slot. And I think that secondary that is finally starting to get healthy again should be able to hold the Baltimore wide receivers to a pretty below average day, especially if the drop issues continue in this week's of play. Now, tight end versus linebackers, Mark Andrews is very good. Our linebackers are very good, but I'm going to give the slight edge to Mark Andrews, easily a top 5 tight end in the NFL. And even though our linebackers are playing great and they're going to make some plays too, it's going to be the opposite of what we saw for the Lions offense, right? The linebackers are going to make some plays. Jack Campbell might have a PBU. Alex Anzalone might have a couple of good coverage reps. But at the end of the day, you're never going to completely shut down Mark Andrews because he is that good of a tight end. And I do think that is going to come back and hurt the Detroit Lions down the stretch. But I think the opposite is true for the running game. The Detroit Lions have the best rushing defense in the NFL, and a large part of that is their linebackers being aggressive, their linebackers being willing to step up and tackle. I think that is going to continue. Gus Edwards is a big, bulky running back, but they tackle David Montgomery in practice every single day, and they will be ready for it. Justice Hill is a kind of a slippery scat back, right? A player that can receive really well, a player that is quick, is hard to tackle, but they tackle Jahmyr Gibbs in practice every day, and they should be ready for that as well. Even the linebackers are going to step up and make plays versus the running backs, but potentially give up a couple plays to the tight end at the same time. Obviously, for the Baltimore Ravens, their X factor is Lamar Jackson, and of course, Justin Tucker is also a factor you have to consider. The last time these two teams played, it was a 19-17 contest that forced the Baltimore Ravens and Justin Tucker to kick a career and also NFL record distance field goal of 69 yards to hit off the uprights or hit off the goalpost and go in for a Detroit Lions loss. In week 3, third game of Dan Campbell's career, the Lions played so incredibly hard. The defense played really, really well. But at the end of the day, Justin Tucker did Justin Tucker things, hit a 69-yard field goal, set an NFL record, and sent Baltimore home with the victory. I think that is going to be a very close game this time, and it might come down once again to a Justin Tucker game-winning field goal. Taking a look at the outlook of this game, I think the Detroit Lions are going to be able to stop the run. I think that their run game, despite maybe not being as well as it is with David Montgomery at the helm, I do think Jahmyr Gibbs is going to get 16 to 20 carries this week with Josh Reynolds and potentially Muhammad Ibrahim being sprinkled in as well. I think the Lions are going to be able to run the ball. I think they're going to be able to stop the run, and I think they're going to have to play fundamental defense, right? The Baltimore Ravens are a very different offense this year. They spread things out. They have 3 to 4 wide receivers on the field at a time. Of course, Lamar Jackson is a factor. Of course, Mark Andrews is a factor. Zay Flowers is a phenomenal and really, really good rookie. Odell Beckham is still there and kicking. Rashad Bateman is still a really good wide receiver. So they have weapons, and they do move players around quite a bit. So as long as the Detroit Lions are fundamentally sound, as long as they fill their gaps, as long as they contain Lamar Jackson in the pocket, I do think they're going to have a chance to win, and I do think that they are going to have a chance to put up pretty decent numbers versus this Baltimore offense that has struggled as a passing offense and really is just kind of middle of the road as a scoring offense. Now, on the defensive side, really for the Baltimore Ravens, obviously Lamar Jackson is your X factor, right? Escape the pocket. Make plays with your legs, make plays with your arms, be realistically the top 10 quarterback that you've been this year, even if statistics might not say so. Lamar Jackson's pretty easily a top 10 quarterback when he's healthy and playing, and that is going to give Baltimore a chance to win this game. They blitz a lot. Baltimore, I believe, is the 8th or 7th most blitz team in the NFL. They blitz a lot of guys because their front four very rarely gets home. That has to be something that Jared Goff has to watch out for. But after last week versus the constant pressure he was under in Tampa Bay, I think he'll be ready to prepare for that. And then, of course, I think Baltimore has some really scary defensive backs. I talked about how the Lions wide receiving core is probably better than the Ravens secondary right now due to the injuries, but obviously Marlon Humphrey is very good. Obviously, Kyle Hamilton's very good. Obviously, Williams, the other free safety, is very, very good. And those three are really scary. They fly around, they hit, they're physical, they're not afraid to go after the football. But as I said, I think the depth is going to overpower them at some point in this football game, as is the overall health of the Detroit Lions. So with that being said, I think the Detroit Lions take this game 27-23 in Baltimore. The Lions have traveled really, really well this year. They are undefeated on the road. The Lions fans have traveled really, really well this year. I think the run game is going to be a huge part that helps this Detroit Lions offense stay on track, put up some decent points, especially in the red zone. And I think that overall the health is going to go Detroit's way, right? Well, the Baltimore Ravens are still injured. They still have a long list of injury reports going on. The Detroit Lions are getting healthier, right? James Mitchell is returning. Josh Pascal is returning. Brian Branch is returning. Jahmyr Gibbs is returning. Craig Reynolds is returned to practice today, and they are just getting healthier faster than the Baltimore Ravens. I think that overall health is going to be a huge part as to why the Detroit Lions pull out a very close, very hard-fought win in Baltimore and improve to 6-1 going into Monday Night Football versus the Vegas Raiders. With all that being said, though, that is all I got for you guys today. Let me know down in the comments below what you think about this game. Who do you think is going to win? Do you think it's going to be high scoring, low scoring? I have a feeling this game is going to be a low scoring, contest, just like the Tampa Bay Buccaneers were a week ago. But at the end of the day, the Lions have pulled out several very close victories. And I think this is going to be another one yet again. But with all that being said, that is all for you guys today. Thank you so much for watching. And until next time, and as always, go Lions.